Alright, Shalom. Welcome back. Shalom, Akim, and or Wa Akwaf. Alright, I would like to start the lesson off by giving all praises, honors, and glories due to Yahweh, Bahashim, Yahushai, Bahashim. Alright, Rakah Kwadash. First and foremost, for giving me the inspiration, alright, to make this lesson. Also, double honors to our teachers, the apostles, elders, and bishops of Great Millstone, right? Who rule and teach well, because they are worthy of the double honors, the praises, right? Those are the men who I still believe, they are the true leaders of Israel today, you know. Also, last but not least, to you believers out there, all right, to the Israelite foreigners, to the elect, and to the Akwaf that are listening and learning, all right, the men, women, and children, the hopeful elect, to you all I say, Shalom. All right, just to do a quick introduction, if you don't know, my name is Samak Ya'Allah, all right, and I'm from the DC branch of GMS, Great Millstone, okay, and I want to make this a lesson going more into history because I was thinking about this coronation. Yesterday, I didn't see the video of when he was coronated because I was like, I don't really care too much about that. But it just popped in my mind like, yo, I was going into the history about the houses and how they took over England, because that information is wide open. One thing I've noticed is when you're going into European history, the history, okay, of these different European countries is not as available as, let's say, England or what is now called Great Britain. Okay, because Great Britain, I want to say that they done a more excellent job at keeping the records. Keeping, uh, just pretty much making note of history and writing everything down. Okay, compared to these different countries, more so in the Eastern world, except for Russia, because they were writing things down and also keeping records as well. But if you talk about Hungary, like the kings and the houses over there in Hungary, or Poland, you know, not even Poland, Czechoslovakia, Czech Republic, Ukraine, you can't really find much information on those countries. Okay, specifically like Ukraine and all that, because those area, or let me say those areas, right, over there in the east by the Dnieper River, okay, where they call it the grassland, or the heartland of Europe, like where all the horses roam. They were what's the word I'm looking for? Okay, they were what? They were prone to more attacks, okay, from the Khazars, from the Mongols, right? Okay, and even from the Arabs, because at one point of time they tried invading, okay, through the Caucasian region, which is like Georgia and Armenia and all that. But I digress, So it's a beautiful thing that we have this history now, and going into the history, I realized like, hey, look, we tend to say that the Dark Ages ended in the 15th century, which is not true. The 15th century was when we started going down. Okay, we say that because for you new brothers and sisters that are coming in, it makes it easier for yourself, just to have that thought in your mind that we went down in the 15th century. But if you look deeper into history, okay, it took a while for our people to go down. And you know one thing I've noticed is just because a Jake was ruling a country did not mean he had power. Okay, because towards the latter end of the 17th century, or even going on to like the mid 17th century, okay, like the 1650s the 1640s, the 1630s, right? The 1620s, there was a power shift, okay? And whosoever had the most money, whoever had the most wealth, was the one who held the most power. It wasn't about status and you having a title, because kings can be easily removed. You know, if you piss off a certain amount of people, a good portion of people, they'll rise up and get you out of there. You know, and install one of your family members on the throne, who's gonna be more lenient to their request. So that's what was going on, and you know, a lot of nobles, kings were getting beheaded. You know, if you know about that instance that happened in France, right? Where you know the whole give them cake thing. Those people, okay, the king and the queen, but primarily the king, they were Israelites. You know, they were so-called black people, okay, who got their heads chopped off by the peasants, mainly consisting of Edomites. And after that, what happened? Napoleon took over. Okay, which if you don't know, Napoleon is an Edomite, right? So Napoleon took over, and he just took over France. And if you read in history, when Napoleon took over, that sparked like a whole revolution through all the European countries, because you had European countries like Russia who still had a black czar, okay, or a so-called black man in power. Okay, so when Esau was seeing, okay, uh, his own people coming up into power and rising up against the monarchies, right? That sparked a whole worldwide revolution in the European continent, and they started shifting from monarchies to democracy or parliamentaries. You know, which parliament is a another form of democracy. If you don't know, there's representative democracy, if I'm not mistaken, right? If my memory serves me right, and then there's also parliamentary democracy as well, which is what you see in the UK. First scripture I want to get is Job 9:24. It says here, the earth is given into the hand of the wicked, right? The hand of the wicked. Malachi 1 verse 4, whereas Edom saith, we are impoverished, and we will build what? The desolate places. Okay? Uh, and we know these scriptures, you know, if you've been in here for a while, but also, you know, I have new believers that are watching my videos, so it's very important that I get this out. You know, repetition is the father of skill, and it doesn't hurt for me to bring this out, just so another individual, another soul can be edified. You know. That's one thing I've struggled over the years when I'm doing these videos. I tend to get, you know, a little lazy. It's not a good trait of mine, you know. Scripture says our righteousness are as filthy rags. You know, that's one of my filthy rags right there. Anyways, enough of me. This is Malachi 1 verse 4. Whereas Edom said, we are impoverished, but we will return and build, okay, the desolate places. And they were impoverished. You can read about that in Job, the 30th chapter, right? Which I may get that, you know, if the spirit, it looks like the spirit wants me to get it. I'm just gonna pull up the whole chapter real quick, right? They were impoverished, you know, during the time of the serpent, you know. Esau was in a confused state of mind, and also they became impoverished, okay, after the fall. Well, let me not say the fall. You could say after the fall of the Western Roman Empire, but it started all, you know, when when the 12 fetters of Rome, okay, which, let's go ahead and get that. I don't know why, but whenever I'm doing a lesson, that's when the sleepiness and the fatigue, you know, comes in. When I'm not, you know, when I'm not doing a lesson, all of a sudden I have energy. That's Satan right there. That is definitely Shaitan. I rebuke thee, Satan, in the name of Yahweh Bashem Yahweh Shai. All right. So here are the 12 Caesars, or you could say the 12 fetters, right? Okay, you have Julius Caesar, first fetter, right? Augustus, you know, which is like his adopted son, or I believe he's his nephew, if I'm not mistaken. Tiberius, and Little Boots Caligula or Caligulae. Caligulae. I believe that's how you say his name in the Latin. Caligulae or Little Boots. Claudius, if you don't know about Claudius, he expelled the Jews from Rome. Nero, very famous character, Trump, which me personally, I believe, what's it called? I believe Joe Biden is Claudius in reincarnation. He's either Claudius, he's either Claudius or Tiberius. But I strongly believe he's Claudius in reincarnation because there's a bust of Claudius, like a statue of Claudius, and it looks just like Joe Biden, just like him. It's crazy. There's Nero. You have Galba, Otto, Vitellius, which Vitellius is the one that looks like a so-called black man. I believe I believe he's a terror because the prophecy is always right. It talks about the 12 fetters, which these were the 12 Edomites. Okay, that ruled the Roman Empire. The first 12 they were all Edomites. So he may have been a terror. Vespasian, we all know him, and then his two sons Titus and Domitian, right? And after Domitian, you had what is known as the good emperors, right? Okay, let's go ahead and type in the good emperors. I'm not gonna go into Second Ezra 11 or 12. That's gonna take way too long. It's gonna be a 2 to 3 hour lesson because when I go deep into history, man, it's kind of hard for me to crawl out of that hole. It's like going deep into the rabbit hole. You just keep on digging, 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 and next thing you know, you have like 50 tabs open. Let's see, the good emperors, right? I'm in the good mood today. The good emperors, okay? So here it is, the five good emperors. They have them in order from 96 AD to 180 AD, okay? Nerva, the first Israelite emperor. And if you don't know, there's a bust of Nerva, which you may think he's an Edomite with how he looks. There's a bust out there, right? I don't know how I found it, but I was looking online and I found a bust of Nerva. And there's one with him having a beard, like a straight on beard. He looks like a Sicilian. Like if you pull up a picture of a Sicilian, he looks just like a Sicilian. So he's definitely a Jake. Nerva, Trajan, okay? The second Israelite Jake out there. I believe they're related, Nerva and Trajan, if I'm not mistaken. I could be wrong. They might have some sort of relation. And then Hadrian, if you don't know who Hadrian is, he's known as the Jake who was fucking up those zealots, okay? Because after the whole Titus besieging Jerusalem, there was another siege that happened close to Jerusalem. I think it was in Masada, right? And I believe Hadrian was the one who quelled the rebellion. Okay, he came down with the iron fist, and he's also the same man who renamed Israel to Palestine just to piss off the Jews. Which he was pretty much an Israelite. From his respective tribe, either Judah, Benjamin, or Levi, a Jew who did not know that he was an Israelite. He was in the Gentile state of mind. Okay, so it was a Gentile Israelite versus Israelites that knew who they were. I don't know. I just find it funny. Hadrian. He always talked about how he disliked the Jews because he never kept quiet. But I guess he didn't know that he was a nigga himself. And then you have Antonius Pius. Okay, another interesting character. He came right after Hadrian. Over there in Scotland, right? He built what is called the Hadrian Wall, right? Which stopped the Picts from coming in, and then Antonius Pius came in, expanded the conquest right into Scotland, and he also built what is called the Antonius Wall, right? So you have the Hadrian and the Antonius Wall, and then the last one of the five good emperors was who? Marcus Aurelius. Okay, the one and only, the OG. He was the best emperor in this timeline right here. Okay, look him up, Marcus Aurelius. His name, his reputation, it speaks well of him. All right, that's all I have to say. Okay, then after Marcus Aurelius, you had who? You had I believe it's Commodus. Then after Commodus, you had who? Septimus Severus. Which that whole Septimus Severus bullshit. I never believed in it. Sorry, I never believed. When they said that Septimus Severus was like the first Israelite to rule Rome, I never believed it. I never believed that at all because if you look at these statues right here, they all look like Jakes. There's a lot of stuff. Even some brothers now they regurgitate from one West. I don't know if it's like if it's ignorance or they just they just don't know. They haven't because we all have our lots. Brothers are good at history. Some brothers just stick to prophecy. Some brothers are excellent when it comes to the herbs and healing. And you have other brothers who are just good at languages. So it may just not be one of their strong suits to go into history, but it needs to be pushed out there. Okay, that Septimus Severus was not and it is not the first Israelite emperor to rule Rome. Okay, that's an old bullshit regurgitated lie from one West, just like many other things. Cornelius being an Edomite and all that. All right, let's go back to Malachi 1:4. Whereas Edom saith we are impoverished, right? I'm going to show you where they're impoverished. Job chapter 30, verse 1. But now they that are younger than I have me in derision, right? Whose fathers I would have disdain, okay, to have set with the dogs of my flock. The derision. Also, Esau being younger than I, us, not physically but spiritually, okay? Because when someone is younger than you, that means they're of a smaller rank. Esau is of a smaller rank in the eyes of Yahweh Bashim Yahushua. Why? Because he's the vessel of dishonor while we are the vessels of honor, okay? And, I don't even have to go into the second part, the second latter part of the verse. Esau is into bestiality, so you definitely don't want them to hang around your dogs, or else they're gonna do something. Yea, whereto might the strength of their hands profit me, okay, in whom old age was perished. Let me read that again. Yea, whereto might the strength of their hands profit me, in whom old age was perished. Yeah, Esau, he's never ever really done good. Esau, his works and his might has never led to Jacob's a wellness or welfare. Okay, back in the old world, right, the ancient world, you know, who was the one that was making the ancient world great? Was it not the dark nations? You had the Assyrians. Okay, you had Cush at one time, Nimrod, right, with Babylon and all that. You had the Persians. Okay, you had the Syrians, the Egyptians as well. Esau, you never really had a great quote unquote Edomite empire until when Alexander came on the scene. So back then, all of the technology, all these different, even the witchcraft that Esau uses, is not of his own. He got this from another nation. Okay, that was ruined during that time in their respective kingdom. Verse 3: For want and famine, they were what? Solitary. They were pretty much alone. Okay, separated from the people, isolated. Okay, fleeing into the wilderness in former time, desolate and waste. Okay, their condition wasn't the best. Okay, and they were pushed up into the caves. Okay, by the dark nations. The Arabs, the Jews. Okay, some of the northern kingdom as well, because they were there, they were present, right? uh, all these different nations round about, they pushed them up in the caves and they kept them there, because if you seen an Edomite at that time, they were known as what you would call the wildmen, okay, or cavemen, okay, and they had a reputation that followed them, okay, and that reputation was pure beast like savagery. We're talking about savagery where if you ever seen that Flintstone commercial, you got that guy with like the wooden club and whatnot, and he's walking around. I forgot Dr. Flintstone, whatever is like that character. That's how Esau was, and he was going around clubbing people, kidnapping people, stealing food and all that. So they were pretty much outlawed, and that's that curse that the Lord put upon them. Genesis 4. Okay, no, not necessarily the curse, but that's like role playing. Is pretty much playing out the whole situation again with Cain. Okay, Cain talking about him being a fugitive and a vagabond in the earth. Esau became a wanderer, during that time, even to the point when they became the Khazars, which Khazar means wanderer in the Turkish tongue. Okay, so they became wanderers, having no sure dwelling place. Okay, verse 3. For want and famine they were solitary, fleeing into the wilderness, in former time desolate and waste, who cut up mallows by the bushes and juniper roots for their meat. So they were eating a lot of berries, which is it's good, it's healthy. It's just documenting what they ate. They didn't eat a lot of meat because they didn't even know how to hunt. Okay, they were just savages, all right. So they grabbed whatever they could find, they ate. You know, it could have been poisonous berries, and they still ate that. So verse 5, they were driven forth from among men. Okay, this is them being isolated. They cried after them as after a thief. Okay, and when a thief steals something, you chase them with all your might, with pure hatred that you're gonna catch that man and either beat the shit out of him or take what he stole from you. Verse 6, to dwell in the cliffs of the valleys and caves of the earth and in the rocks. Okay, and they hid in those rocks, right? And you have the Caucasian region, they hid in those caves. Also, you also had caves up there in Eastern Europe. Okay, all those caves over there because the majority of the slaves during the Dark Ages they came from where? Eastern Europe, from those Edomites. Okay, because they were going around being passed around. Their women were being ravaged by the Vikings. They had their way with the woman. Their men were just being, the Vikings were doing good things. That's all I can say. If you know, you know. Yeah, shout out to my brother Quadar. He knows. The Vikings were doing good things. They were putting hell on these Edomites. Holy hell. Putting them to death, working them 24/7. And now there was a lot of wickedness that was happening. Like they were just raping uh, Esau's woman right in front of him, and then they put him to death afterwards, or they'll make him fight to the death. It was a lot of wickedness, but they were putting holy hell on Esau, right? Verse 7, among the bushes they brayed, under the nettles they were gathered together. And you see that in the movie Quest for Fire, okay, where they're huddling around, right? There's a scene. Let me see if I can find it. Sponge, Bob, Cave, Man, scene. There's a scene in SpongeBob. Bro. This is how Esau was looking, bro. He was through. That's that curse that the Lord put upon him. Upon thy belly thou shalt crawl, and thou shalt eat what dust all the days of thy life. They were looking through, man. SpongeBob Caveman. What's that scene where they were gathered together? They were gathered. Yo, okay, here it is. uh, I mean, this is it's a cartoon, but art imitates life, as they say, right? This is how Esau was. They were gathered together and just huddling and just braying, making animal noises, right? This is one of my favorite chapters. If you can't tell already. Verse 8, they were children of fools, yea, children of base men. Okay, they were viler than the earth, right? Whew. Verse 9, now and now I am I their song, yea, I am their byword. Yeah, they're calling us niggers, spics, wetbacks, tontos. Okay, now we are the base men, quote unquote. But all of that is going to be turned around, as the scripture says. The last what? shall be first, and the first shall be last. We get that real quick. Let me put in King James. Okay, here it is. Matthew 21st, 16. It says here, so the last shall be first, and the first last. Okay, Esau is the end of the world, but Jacob is the beginning of it that followeth. But few are Salaki, I messed it up. Let me repeat that. So the last shall be first, and the first shall be last. For many be called, what but few chosen. Okay. Uh, there's also a scripture in, I believe, is in Ezra's. I'm not sure if it's in first or second. I believe it's in second, where it says the world of now is for many, but the world to come is for few. Okay. Let me go ahead and get that. World to come is for few. Oh yeah, second Ezra's 8. Fire scripture, one of my favorite precepts. He answered me, saying, the Most High have made this world for many, Edom, and the other nations. Okay, Psalms 2, it tells you why did the heathen rage, and they imagine a vain thing. Okay, they want to rule forever. The heathens want to rule forever. But what? The Lord has other plans. But the world to come, a future world, telling you that what the kingdom of heaven will be on earth. Okay, but the world to come for few. Okay, and that few are the elect, and then the whole nation of Israel. That is the few out of all the nations of the earth. Okay, because there are 17 nations, and only one nation will be on top in the kingdom of heaven. All right. All right. Let me go ahead and stop it there in Job chapter 30. We continue reading this. Whereas Edom said, we are impoverished, right? So we read when they were impoverished. First time was, during the time of the garden. The Lord put that curse on the serpent. Okay, and it played out during, when Esau was up in there after they took over the Horites. They went to Petra, right? Into those caves. They were pretty much impoverished. Okay, until the Lord raised up Alexander, and then that's when they started moving. Okay, and then after that, after the 12 Caesars, they fell again. Okay, and they became impoverished. But what? We will return and build the desolate places. You know that how it says places, more than one place. So there are more than one, or let me say there are more than one empires that Esau built. Okay, he has built many empires, many places. Okay, Rome, Greece, and now the modern Roman Empire, which is Babylon the Great. Okay, which sitteth upon the EU and NATO nations. Okay, these are the different desolate places that Esau has built. But what does the Lord say? They shall build, but I will throw down. So the throw down of this kingdom is coming. Okay, it's been in the plans and in the books for a long time, since the beginning, or let me say the foundations of the earth. Everything was written. So the Lord said, I am. What's that? I think it's in also in Malachi as well, where it says, I, the Lord, change not, therefore ye sons of Jacob are not consumed. So the Lord is not a man that he shall lie, neither is he the son of man that he should what repent. Okay, and they shall call them the border of wickedness, right, and the people against whom the Lord has indignation forever. So that whole Deuteronomy 23 verse 7, born not the Edomite. You just take that understanding, take that quote unquote knowledge, and just toss it in the trash, because you're not going to make it far, okay, with that mindset. Okay, now you have so called, or let me say so called white people that look like Edomites, that actually go back to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, but actual biblical descendants, okay, of Edom. This is what the scripture says: the people against whom the Lord has indignation for. So there's no forgiveness of sin All right, there's no forgiveness. There's nothing, nada. Okay, nothing. All right. Oh man. All right. Let's go ahead and get into the history. I'm gonna go ahead and start it off with the family tree. All right. So this, what you see here, this is Charles III, as he calls himself. He's not the real Charles. You know, he's just a bag of old bones that's just taking up the seat until Yahushai comes. Okay, and he's gonna scatter like a roach. We're gonna see this devil work in the kingdom because I don't believe he's gonna die in that nuclear war. I believe he's gonna hide in his bunkers with the rest of the elites. So we're gonna see this old devil very soon. You know, and he's gonna be working from sundown to sun up. From sunset to no, it's from sunrise to sundown, right? All right, this is the House of Windsor, okay? And this is in fact, let me start at here. This is the House of Hanover. Now you guys have to understand something, okay? You have to understand something. Understand this, okay? The House of Hanover, okay? The House of Hanover. In fact, let me do this real quick. Let me do this real quick, just so you guys can understand. It's very important that you Akim and Aquaf understand something, right? Because the historian is about to teach you. I'm joking. I'm joking. You can tell that I'm off it right now. You know, I'm just having fun with this thing. So let me click here. This family tree. These family trees are pretty good. It's pretty good. I like that. All right. So this is the House of Stuart. Okay. You have the famous James. You know, King James, James the First, and James the Sixth, right, of Scotland. Okay, and then after that you have Anne of Denmark, which she was a so-called black woman. You have the coat of arms. Okay, from that whole union, right? Remember, King James. King James descended from the Tudor and the Stuart family tree. He's a, I believe he's a maternal descendant of the Tudors. So his line actually goes back to the Tudor family. Okay, which the Tudor family they came, their line goes back to the Lancasters, and the Lancasters their line goes back to somebody else. I don't remember their name. I believe it's like the York. No, that is not the York. It's the Plantagenets or whatever, however you say it. You know, and then the Plantagenets their line goes back to the Normans or the Normandy branch, which you know William the Conqueror and Richard the First, you know all those good people, right? And then the Normandy branch goes back to the House of Wessex, right? Look, I know all of this off the top of my head because this is what I do. You know, I love history, and you know, not to boast or anything, but it's just the lot that the Lord gave me. Okay, history has always been a thing that I loved, even when I was in the world. So you have the House of Tudor, the House of Stuart, James coming from the House of Tudor through his mother's line, and the House of Stuart through his father's line. So he was pretty much like a relative of the Tudors. Anne of Denmark, right? I believe she comes from like a either a German nobility branch or that the Habsburg from like the Spanish branch. I could be wrong. This whole union created Elizabeth Stuart. Then you have Henry Frederick, which he became a prince of Wales. That's the title he received. And then you have Charles the First, the famous Charles the First, right? And then also Elizabeth Stuart married, okay, the daughter of King James. She married Frederick the Fifth, King of Bohemia, which he was a Jake as well. Surprise, surprise, right? Now, if you look at these timelines, it's showing past the 1500s because our people was still ruined in the latter times of the Renaissance period, you know, contrary to popular belief. And Charles I and Henrietta Maria of France, okay, they had children and then produced, you had Catherine I of Braganza, which I believe she married into the Spanish Habsburgs, right? You have Charles II, okay, Charles II. and then you also have James the Second. Okay, right? This line got pretty much, you know, cut off. They didn't have any children. Charles the Second was pretty much childless, right? And you also have Mary Stuart, okay, like an off branch of her, like another daughter, and she married William the Second of Orange, which you don't know who William the Second is. He's the one that also founded what is known as the Netherlands or Holland, okay? So he's the founder. Well, I wouldn't say he founded the country, but he pretty much founded the kingdom of the Netherlands because before then, Netherlands was like a vassal state of of Spain, okay? And during the whole Spanish, the Catholicism and Protestant war, they broke up. Okay, they fought for their independence and they broke up, and William was pretty much was declared the king. Okay, William the Second of Orange, and then you have William the Third. Okay, you have Anna Hyde, right, which produced Anne, Mary the Second. Okay, and then you also have William. Okay, William the Third, which he ruled England and the Netherlands. Okay, and you have Sophia of Hanover, which she lived for quite a while. She was a daughter of Frederick V. And going down here, if you follow this line, Anne Hyde, she had a son, which is James Francis Stewart, the Old Pretender. I believe he's called the Old Pretender because, you know, he was pretending to be king, but they didn't give the rights to him. They just said, fuck you, pretty much. And then he had a son called Charles Edward Stewart, Bonnie Prince Charlie, okay? And then he married Louisa Stolberg, and that was pretty much the end of the line of the so-called Stewart branch, right? The Stewart branch. Now we're gonna jump over, okay, to the Hanovers, okay? The Hanover branch. The founder of the Hanovers is Ernst Augustus, which he was a Jake, and Sophia of Hanover, which is the daughter, okay, of Frederick V. Okay, so the Hanovers are descendants of the Stuart family matrilineally, but they're still Israelites because of Frederick V. There is lineage coming from another lineage of kings, and so on and so forth. So he produced what is called George the First, and this was the start of the Hanover family tree. And then you have Sophia Dorothea of Selly. Okay, now we're gonna go ahead and jump to the Hanover line. George the First. Now, interesting about George the First, I believe it wasn't him, but it was either him or George the Third that I think it was George the Third that kicked Esau out of England. Like those whole what was it? What they called them? I forgot the term that they had for them, but the quote unquote founding fathers, right? He was the one responsible for kicking them out of out of England. So this is the Hanover line. You have George the First, Sophia Dorothea. Out of that line, you had Sophia Dorothea of Hanover, and then Frederick William the First of Prussia, a Jake as well. You had George the Second, okay, and Caroline of Einbach, okay. The line, the lineage still continued, and then they had many children, okay. First one being Frederick of Hanover, and then you have Augusta of Saxe-Colberg. Now, the Saxe-Colberg line, okay, the Saxe-Colberg line, okay, is a line of Edomites, right? Now, the history is kind of skewed on it. You can't really find much information on them because it's connected to the so-called royal branch as of now. But uh, me personally, I don't believe that this family tree, or let me say this dynasty, right? This royal house were Israelites. You have Anne. She married William the Fourth of Orange. Okay. And then William Duke of Cumberland. Okay, another son, and then Mary, which she married Frederick II of Hesse Cassel, which is like looks like a vassal or like a county, okay, in Germany. And you have Louise. She married Frederick V of Denmark. Okay, So out of that line of Frederick of Hanover, you had George the Third, the famous George the Third, right? The one who kicked those honkies out of England. He married Charlotte of Mecklenburg, which is the famous Charlotte you hear now. That scientists or scholars say that she has black ancestry. They all had black ancestry, but they couldn't hide the truth about her, so they just decided to bring it out. But that's all they will do. They'll only bring truth about one person and then hide the rest. Esau this fucking devil. And then they had children as well, right? In his line, you had Edward from this lineage. You have Edward, Duke of York, William Henry, Duke of Gloucester, and then Henry, Duke of Cumberland, and then Caroline Matilda. She married Christian the Seventh of Denmark. Okay, so jumping down through this lineage, you have uh, Frederick, Duke of York, William the Fourth, uh, Adeline of Saxe Meningen, Edward, Duke of Kent, which he married. He married Victoria of Saxe-Colberg. Okay, right, Victoria of Saxe-Colberg. Okay, and then you have Ernst, Duke of Cumberland, and then Augustus, Duke of Sussex, and then Adolphus, Duke of Cambridge. Now you have George the Fourth, right? Which George the Fourth and Caroline of Brunswick, they had a children. They had a child called Charlotte Leopold of Saxe-Coburg. So this was like kind of the end of George, or let me say the House of Hanover's lineage, right? This was the end right here, starting with George the Fourth. Now if we jump to Edward, Duke of Kent, okay, he was pretty much like the last, okay, of the Hanover branch, because after that he had a daughter named Victoria, the famous Victoria, right? If you look at her picture, she looks like an Edomite, but she she has that complexion because her father was marrying Edomites, so she's gonna have that complexion. But uh, pretty much she was like the last, I guess you could say, so-called black ruler in England. Okay, if you want to say that, like the last Israelite ruler of Britain. She married Albert of Saxe-Coburg and Gotha, which is an Edomite. Okay, and this was the start, okay, of the so-called British royal family that you have now, which is what the House of Saxe-Coburg and Gotha, Albert, and they had all these different children, and then you have what is now known, okay, as George the Fifth, which even though George the Fifth, okay, if we jump to the Windsor family, George the Fifth, right, married Mary, and then they had children: George the Sixth, Edward the Eighth, Elizabeth, Bowes of Lyon, right, and then you have Elizabeth the Second. Okay, this was the start of Esau taking over. Okay, the House of Windsor, all connected to the House of what? Saxe Coburg. Okay, the House of Saxe Coburg. So you have to remember that. All right. So now we're gonna go into some icons, right? Because I pretty much brought out the family tree. Because people might not believe me, I'm just mumbling here and just saying words. You got to back it up, right? So this is King George the Fourth. Okay. This is a excerpt of King George the Fourth. Okay, and we're gonna go to the Hanover line, right? This is King George the Fourth right here. Okay, this is him right here. He looks like a so-called white man, right? And this icon, remember, iconoclasm, right? Whitewashing the images, right? Okay, let's read this excerpt right here. It says here, King George the Fourth, from 1762 to 1830, King of England, eldest son of George the Third. And George the Third had, I believe, he had either 10 to 15 children. Okay, not all of them became kings and princes and dukes and princesses. Some of them actually just became generals and marshals, so they were in the military. And of Queen Charlotte of Mecklenburg, Sterlitz, right, was born at St. James Palace about 7:30 on the morning of 12th August 1762. He was stout, meaning he was very built. He was tall, right? A stout fellow, okay? Stout meaning, very, very firm, okay? Of a florid complexion. Now, I looked up the definition of florid right here, okay? And it says here in the adjective, when you're using florid to describe somebody, second definition, okay? It says having a red or reddish color, florid, ruddy complexion, florid face, okay? So florid is another way of saying what? Ruddy complexion, okay? King David was so-called ruddy, okay? Now we don't know if he was ruddy as in the term of skin color, which is like reddish brown, or he was ruddy as in like he had a youthful glow. But we do understand that when Goliath, right, called King David ruddy, he was speaking in terms of of his face being young, of youth. He didn't have any scars, any battle wounds on him. He was perfectly clean. So that's what ruddy was talking about in that context. But normally, other than that, ruddy would mean like a reddish brown skin tone. Okay, and I'm gonna show you a few images. Right, let me type in some a florid complexioned animal. I want to see what comes up. Oh, look at that. This is my first time typing this up. Look at that. Look at that. Oh my goodness. I typed in florid and it brings out images of ruddy. This is the this is how King George the Fourth looked. He had this I didn't he had this type of complexion. Okay? You can see this I think this is a lemur, right? Look at that. Reddish brown. Reddish brown. Okay? A duck. Reddish brown. Let's look for more images, right? And they bring up Edomites. This is palish red. This is not ruddy. Oh boy, Esau. More Edomites, right? That's the thing about Esau. He'll give you the good, but he'll also mix in the bad. So let's look up ruddy complexion animal. Let's see what comes up, right? Oh my goodness, this is perfect. This is ruddy right here. You can see the reddish. You can see like that reddish tone. You see that reddish tone? They look kind of reddish, but it's like a brownish undertone to it. You can see on this guy's head, it's like a brownish skin tone, but towards his nose he has like a reddish tone. This is what they mean when they say ruddy. Look at this cow. This is a ruddy complexion. All right. Malcolm X was ruddy. Okay, King David is described as ruddy. So King David, you know, I believe that he probably had a skin complexion close to this. That's what I believe. Also, sanguine is another term to describe ruddy, like a very red, glowing, you know, look. That's also a ruddy complexion right there. So that's it. I don't need to go any further into that. Let's continue looking at the icon. So we established that King George the Fourth was a Jake. Let's continue scrolling down. And then also through here, they talk about the lords, the dukes, the chancellors and all that, the earls, which you can read about that on your own time. I'll post the link in the description box so you guys can take a look. But I want to get to to the kings and the queens and all that. All right. A Russian general Abram Petrovich, which I may do a video about Russia. Okay. Here's Pope Gregory the First, Pope Gregory the Great, Black Holy Roman Empire, right? Gonna jump all the way down. Oh, this is Athelstan, the famous Athelstan that you see in the Last Kingdom movie, right? This is supposed to be Athelstan. They made him look like an Edomite, right? Whitewashed the hell out of that. This is Queen Joanne the Third of Navarra, Spanish princess. This is Edward the Third. I don't believe this is Edward the Confessor. This is Richard the Second. That's the Jake right there. You can see the nose. You can see the lips. The nose is a dead giveaway. They just whitewashed the photo, right? This is the house of Plantagenet. Okay, the house that came before the Tudors, right? And then you have the house of Lancaster. Okay, the house of Lancaster. They came, I believe, before the Tudors or after the Plantagenets. Okay, the House of Tudor was like the last one that came after. All right, that's good. So you have Henry the Eighth. Okay, you can see that's clearly a so-called black man right there. Uh, he has the woolly afro. Okay, this is him when he was a man. When he's a man, you can clearly see that's a so-called black man. Now, if you go and bring color to this photo, you'll see that he has brown skin. I've done that before. It's on my phone. I don't know how to put it on my laptop, but there's like a website, ancestry something.com. Is like they use it to pretty much bring color to black and white photos. And when you bring color to this photo, I mean, you see the so-called brown, or let me say the so-called black skin. You know, not really black, but you see the brown, dark skin melanin that he had. You know, which Henry VIII was described as like a ruddy, quote unquote, handsome man, right? He had many wives and all that because he was sought after, right? So, I think also that's also the guy who had the whole Bloody Mary, Bloody Mary. If you know about the Bloody Mary thing, that was one of his wives. Where they created that whole folklore about, right? This is Thomas Cromwell, first Earl of uh, Essex, right? Essex. That's such a hard word to say, but Cromwell, okay, was the one responsible for vandalizing pretty much all of the icons, okay, and he vandalized as many icons as he could, okay. This is Edward. This is John Weaver, an English poet. This is Edward the. This is Edward the Sixth, okay. Looks like a so-called black man to me, and his father is Henry VIII. So that shows you that Henry VIII was a Jake. Okay. This is who is Anne Seymour. Okay, Duchess of Somerset. Then you have King Philip of Spain, which he's part of the Habsburg dynasty. Okay, that ruled for a long time, right? And then you have Elizabeth the First, which she was a so-called black woman. She was a black woman with like the complexion of let's say I guess you could say Mariah Carey, or Ice Spice. She had like that kind of complexion. Is like a kind of like a brown, almost light skin complexion, like a red bone, right? But what she would do, Elizabeth the First, is that she would pretty much paint herself with white makeup. Okay, and she did that to look even more white. She pretty much hated herself. She hated how she looked of her brown complexion, so she decided to, I guess you could say, whiten her skin, and she did that and put makeup on her. So people only seen her when she looked white. Like the average citizen in England only seen her when she looked white, but behind closed doors, she looked like a totally different person. She looked like a so-called black woman. So that's our people. That's our people. You have the book The Life of Elizabeth I by Alison Ver. Okay, Ver, which I believe this is a German, just by that last name alone. Okay, Ver. He made this book and he documented her having a swarthy olive complexion, which is like a light brown, very light brown complexion. Let's continue going down. Continue going down. You have the bishops, right? Uh, yeah, this is how Elizabeth the First would probably look like. Have this type of complexion, just a little bit darker. Okay, and she just applied the white makeup to make herself look even more white. Statue of Dorothy Doddridge. You can see that's a black woman right there, right? King James, the famous King James, okay, of the Stuart line. Henrietta Maria of France. Hey, isn't that the woman that we were just talking about? What line is she a part of? Let's see if we can find it. She married somebody. Maybe it was in the Stuart line. Okay, here it is. She married Charles the First. So this is Charles the First wife. Okay, you clearly see that she's a so-called black woman. I mean, look at that nose. That's a Jake. This is Louis de Louvois, Duke of Saint Simon. Okay, Monsieur, French guy. Oliver Cromwell, the famous devil. All right, famous devil, famous demon, complete demon. And there's an icon of him looking like a so-called black man, but honestly, I believe he's a tear. If he is, if he was or is like end up being a so-called black man, I believe he's a tear, just off of what he did. Okay, in England, Ireland, Scotland. Gonna continue down, looking at the icons. Okay, go in about the whole black Irish thing. Louise Maria Telerice or Telerice. I don't know really how to say French like that. Daughter of the Queen of France and Maria Theresa of Spain. Okay, this is her. Gorgeous woman, right? So-called black woman. Continue going down. This is General George Monk. Okay, and the way he was looking, you would think that he was a king. Or this might be Charles II. Oh, this is General George Monk. Okay, we're going into Charles II right now. King William III, or William III of Orange of Holland. Okay, right? This is him. Whitewashed photo. Okay, that's Anne, the daughter of King James II. Okay, it talks about the deportation of black Scots, Irish, and Englishmen. Okay, to the Americas and the Caribbean islands as prisoners of war. That's what Cromwell did. This is Anne or Elizabeth of Bohemia, daughter of King James VI. Okay, this is his daughter, so-called black woman. She's gorgeous. Okay, our people were looking beautiful, right, during that time. Oh, and it says here, with the demise of the Stuart dynasty in 1714, her descendants, the Hanoverian rulers, succeeded to the British throne. So, like I said before, the Hanovers are descendants of the Stuarts matrilineally, and the Hanovers were Jakes. Okay, the House of Hanover. It says the House of Hanover, the Hanoverians, is a deposed German royal dynasty. Okay, which has ruled the Duchy of Brunswick and Lund, Lundberg. Okay, Lundberg. because that U is U. So you got to say Lüneburg or Lüneburg. German bronze, uh, Schweig or Schweig or Schwev, right? Bronze, Schweig, Lüneburg. My German is not that good. I'm working on it. Bronze, Schweig, Lüneburg. The Kingdom of Hanover, the Kingdom of Great Britain, and the Kingdom of Ireland and the UK of Great Britain and Ireland. It succeeded the House of Stuart as monarchs of Great Britain and Ireland in 1714 and held that office until the death of Victoria. She was the last Israelite, okay, to rule over the British Isles, okay, Victoria. In 1901, they are sometimes referred to as the House of Brunswick and Lüneburg, the Hanover line. The Hanover, the House of Hanover is a younger branch of the House of Wealth, okay, which in turn is the senior branch of the House of Este. Queen Victoria was the granddaughter of George III, okay, so she was a descendant of the black nobility. Was an ancestor of most major European royal houses. She arranged marriages for her children and grandchildren across the continent, tying Europe together. This earned her the nickname the Grandmother of Europe. She was the last British monarch of the House of Hanover, and also she was the last British monarch. Okay, she was the last Israelite British monarch. Okay, to ever rule. Her son, King Edward the Seventh, right, belonged to the House of Saxe-Colberg. Why? Because of their father, Prince Albert. Okay, so this was the end of the Hanover line. Prince Albert, if you look here, this devil right here, Prince Albert, right? Oh, let me go here. Prince Albert, okay. Prince Albert, Prince Albert, Prince Albert, Prince Albert. Right here, Prince Albert. He was like a nobody that just married Victoria, just out of nowhere. She did it because she was trying to secure marriages for her children and whatnot. But that's besides the point. But this was pretty much the end, okay, of like the whole Israelite rulership of England of the UK. Okay, so where was I? Prince Albert, since Victoria could not inherit the German kingdom and duchies under Salic law, because a woman could not inherit any titles, right? And that's specifically talking about like the Holy Roman Empire, the German Empire, all that, because different European countries had different laws, and she couldn't inherit any of her German titles. Those possessions passed to the next eligible male heir, right? Her uncle, Ernest Augustus the First of Hanover, okay, the Duke of Cumberland, and the Teviot Dale, the fifth son of George III, which I'm going to show him right here. Let's find George III. Okay, okay, this is him right here, Ernest, and he died in 1851. He didn't have any children, so we already know what happened to his lands. Okay, so that's it for the Hanover line. This is the Holy Roman Emperor Leopold the First. I don't think this is the same Leopold that committed the genocide. Okay, it says here George Duke of Brunswick Lüneburg is considered the first member, okay, of the House of Hanover. The Duchy of Brunswick Lüneburg was divided in 1635. George inherited the principalities of Kallenberg and Göttingen, and in 1636 he moved his residence to Hanover. His son, Duke Ernest Augustus, was elevated to the Prince Elector of the Holy Roman Empire in 1692. Ernest Augustus's wife, Sophia of the Palatinate, was declared heiress of the throne of Great Britain, then England and Scotland, by the Act of Settlement in 1701. which what decreed Roman Catholics could not accede to the throne. Senior Sophia was at that time the senior eligible Protestant descendant of James the First and of England, or James the First of England. So lots of good information in history. This is George the Third. Okay, this is a black and white photo, and I've done this before with this photo as well. I added color to this photo by using a website, and he has brown skin. He was a brown skinned man. Okay, a black man. All right, with like woolly hair and a brown complexion. That is George the Third for you. And the son had lighter skin. He came out looking like a red bone, and he was of a ruddy complexion. So there you go, right? You can read about that on your own time. This is Charlotte of Mecklenburg, the beautiful Charlotte. You can see she's a so-called black woman, and these children are her two kids. They're both Israelites as well. So there you go. She is the wife of George the Third. Okay, and they depict her as an Edomite. Even in this one, you could tell that she's a Jake, just looking at her hair and all that. An old Jake woman. There's articles about this. Was this Britain's first black queen? Again, they're only going to reveal the truth about her and nobody else, which is a damn shame. This is her again. I mean, you could clearly see this is a so-called black woman. Clearly see. I met black women that look just like this, right here. The side profile, everything. Oh man. This is a Barbados penny of George the Third. Again, the guy that we just saw. All right. In that black and white photo, this is a coin of him. You can see the hair, you can see the thick lips, and you can see the nose. Okay, and this was a Barbados penny that was used, okay, in the colony of Barbados, when Barbados was like a colony of Great Britain. This was the coin that was being used as currency, okay, and it was a so-called black man's face on the coin. Like I said before, just because Jake was still in rulership doesn't mean things were good, okay? Because at that time, the power resided in the money and the wealth, and whosoever controlled the money controlled the world at that time, okay? The Rothschild said, "I care not who makes the laws. Give me the control of the wealth, right, and I can control the whole nation." Okay, so that was pretty much the motto. This is Prince Adolphus, which, if we go here, Prince Adolphus, this is him, the Duke of Cambridge. This is him right here, the seventh son of George the Third. Look at him. Look at him. That's a so-called black man right there. Look at him. That's a bald Negro. Oh man, I'm having fun with this. Uh, see if there's anything else. This is Queen Victoria. This is her right here. Clearly see that she's a so-called black woman, Queen Victoria, and she was the last. Okay, uh, she was pretty much the last Israelite to ever rule Great Britain. That's her, Queen Victoria. This is her again, a so-called black woman. She looks kind of like a so-called mixed. Like, have you ever seen those so-called mixed? They have a Jake father and a Edomite mother, and they come out looking like this. You can kind of see it in the black and white photo, especially here. She could pass for a Gadite too, so-called Native American. And this is her again, right? Or I believe this is her mother, or like a family member of her. I'm not really too sure. Yeah, this is her. Okay, this is Queen Victoria again, and she looks a little bit darker here, and she's with family members, because remember, she pretty much married an Edomite, and she was surrounded by Edomites. I believe this is the mother of her husband. Okay, so there you go. You see her again, Queen Victoria. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna get these photos and put them in color and see how they really look. So that's Queen Victoria again with family. And then you have the House of Saxe-Colberg. This is him right here, King Edward the Seventh. Okay, and then that's how you get the Elizabeth branch and all that. And the self-proclaimed royal houses now. So that shows you that Charles III, he's not the real ruler, okay, of England. I'm going to go ahead and end off with this scripture right here, Daniel 4 verse 17. Let's see, gonna end it off with this scripture right here. This is Daniel 4 and 17. This matter is by what? The decree of the watchers, the angels, and the demand by the word of the holy ones, the angels again, to the intent that the living, us, us that are made of flesh and bones, may know that what the Most High ruleth in the kingdom of men. So he intervenes in affairs of men. The Greeks, they believe that the gods do not intervene in the matters of men. They got that wrong. Okay, God, the only God, he interferes in the matters of men. Okay, and giveth it to whomsoever he will. Okay, and it was by destiny. Okay, by prophecy that we were gonna fall. Okay, and we fell. We fell great, great, great depths. But now the Lord is bringing us up again. Okay, and set up over it what the basis of men, and that's who you have now. This is the basis of men. This devil right here. Okay, King Charles III, and very soon, all those riches that he has is going to be passed over to us. The saints of the Most High shall take the kingdom and possess it forever and ever, even forever. Amen. So I'm gonna just end it off there. I don't need to go any further. I just wanted to do a little video about this whole scheme that's going around in England and in the United Kingdom. Lord willing, this lesson was edifying out there to the elect. I'm gonna go ahead and post these websites in the description box, and you guys can go ahead and take a look for yourself. And until next time, Shalom.